I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the most personal and emotional interviews yet with the candidates for LA mayor.
Okay.
This week, Rick Caruso's kids give us their first TV interview.
This is the first time you've done something like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is on camera.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Karen Bass's kids also give us their first TV interview.
Oh my God, I don't know why I'm crying so.
Caruso emotional when discussing his decades of community service.
The biggest problem is that Tina and I are both crybabies, so.
His kids emotional defending him against attack ads.
Why am I going to get upset?
The Caruso family remarkably close.
What's Rick Caruso, the dad, like?
He's so fun.
The love between Bass and her family is also clear.
Who is Karen Bass, the mom?
She's my mentor. She's my confidant. I'm getting a little emotional.
They discuss the tragic death of Bass's daughter, Amelia, and son-in-law, Michael.
People will tell you in time it gets better, and it's just not true.
Plus, how decades of Bass's community activism has led to this moment, and how her kids convinced her to run for mayor.
I love her to death, and I think the city will too.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. Perhaps the most interesting, closest, most consequential, and certainly the most expensive race in California is the contest to lead the state's largest city. We hosted the first debate of the LA mayor's race and have done multiple deep dive interviews into the issues at stake with both candidates over many months. If you missed those, we encourage you to watch them at theissueisshow.com. This week, we're trying something that hasn't really been done by anybody covering this race so far, an entire show focused on their character. What most shapes their worldview, and how do their kids impact their thinking? You'll hear from Karen Bass and family in our next segment, but let's begin with Rick Caruso and his kids.
This is Jesus.
Rick Caruso is introducing his kids to a family whose education he helped sponsor.
He said Jesus is going to be the mayor after I am, which is great.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm ready for that.
Caruso has helped hundreds and hundreds of kids like Jesus over 4 decades.
It's one of the reasons, quite frankly, that I'm really excited about becoming the mayor, because I get to really amp it up.
Caruso says he first learned about service from his Italian immigrant grandparents who came to Boyle Heights in the 1920s.
They came here with nothing, that moved to Boyle Heights, didn't know the language, didn't have any money, just had a dream to have a better life for their family. As modest as they were, their rule was there's always room at the table. There's always a seat at the table. And there's always a way to help people.
30 years ago, Caruso and his wife Tina started donating and volunteering at an early education center called Para Los Niños. To get there, parents have to walk through LA's Skid Row.
They take their kids to that school starting from 3 months old to 6 years old. They have to cross that sea of inhumanity, but when you open up those doors, it is literally a slice of heaven and hope combined.
The Tina and Rick Caruso Early Education Center at Para Los Niños provides parents with tools to help their kids out of poverty.
The biggest problem is that Tina and I are both crybabies, so.
It's emotional for you to see those kids? What goes through your mind when you see them?
It's not sadness. It's literally tears of joy that these families work so hard. The moms and dads are living and working on the Skid Row area, normally in the garment district, something like that. But to have that kind of hope and belief and love of your child, to have the gift of going to a school that's going to give your child a chance for a future, that's what is just inspiring.
Seeing them makes him reflect on his own family's journey.
It reminds me of my grandparents. You know, that was them.
The Carusos would often bring their own kids along to learn from these families. Can you talk for a moment about what your kids mean to you?
Oh, now you're going to make me cry again. You know, I'll bundle it up with Tina. They're the dearest things in my life. They're the thing that I care about the most. They're the beginning and the end of my day.
The Caruso family is exceptionally close. The adult children and their parents meet for dinner several times a week.
They have a real sense of humanity and a real sense of purpose and of care and love, literally of their fellow man and woman. And there's a pureness to them that inspires me. And I'm so proud of them.
We sat down with his kids for their first TV interview of the campaign.
Welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
This is the first time you've done something like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is on camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alex is a 32-year-old real estate attorney. Gianna, or Gigi, is a 22-year-old fashion designer and entrepreneur. Justin is a 27-year-old DJ and music producer. Greg is a 31-year-old director and filmmaker. He joined us via Zoom while battling COVID.
What is it about your dad that you love so much?
I love that he's really down to earth. He is like a best friend to all of us. And that's what means the most to me.
He loves to have fun, he loves music, he loves singing, he loves to tease us.
He is genuinely just like the sweetest, most compassionate, loving person ever. He's so personable.
He's always conducted his life with great integrity and compassion.
They learned a lot about service during all those trips to Para Los Niños.
He taught us that service is part of our responsibility as human beings, frankly. There was so much joy in it, especially being with kids.
You're with the most beautiful, cutest little kids ever. They're all so happy.
Watts traditionally has always been a violent place. Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
2018, Greg made a film called A Week in Watts, profiling another program his dad helps to fund called Operation Progress.
Living in a place like in Watts can't stop you from looking up to your dreams.
There are incredible, incredible kids who are going through things that no child should have to endure.
8 to like 13, that's where my focus is at. Because
Operation Progress pairs an LAPD officer mentor with a third-grade student, often at the Nickerson Garden Housing Project.
The officer gets to understand the community better. The families get to understand the officers better. So you build trust, which is the key in law enforcement.
The officer stays active in the kid's life through high school. They have a 100% high school graduation rate. Caruso has given over 300 of the kids scholarships, many headed to top colleges.
Columbia, Stanford, USC, Boston College. How about that? These are kids that have grown up sleeping on the floor in the projects because at night there could be a chance that a bullet comes through the window.
Caruso's been volunteering in Watts since then LA Mayor Tom Bradley introduced him to activist Sweet Alice Harris 40 years ago. We were with them in May as she endorsed him.
He's going to get to be mayor, and I'm going to still work with him.
It doesn't get any better.
So is this elementary school?
This is elementary, so this is K through 8.
On this day, Caruso shows us around St. Lawrence of Brindisi in Watts, one of the schools Operation Progress sponsors.
How lucky are we that we can help them?
Some of Caruso's commitment to community is rooted in a deep religious faith.
I believe that everybody needs to believe in something bigger than themselves. You can call that faith, you can call it whatever you want.
At USC, he founded the Caruso Catholic Center, which he says provides mentorship for all faiths.
What it gives me is hope. It gives me a bigger picture. It minimizes the day-to-day problems we all have as human beings.
Caruso says he's also guided by counsel from his kids.
It's this commitment that family is always first and foremost in your life, and that's what you gravitate to, and that's your North Star.
What's Rick Caruso, the dad, like?
He's so fun.
He's always there to give us advice, just to talk to about anything.
The kids say it's been tough to watch some of the attack ads against their dad during the campaign.
It's hard not to scroll on Twitter and get out of that. I would say for me, being his daughter, everything surrounding him and pro-choice would be the thing that, why am I gonna get upset? What?
It's emotional. But you love him a lot.
Right-wing extremists will stop at nothing.
She's referencing ads like this.
And when they needed money, Rick Caruso was happy to help.
That discuss Caruso's past donations to anti-abortion Republicans.
Rick Caruso tapped his fortune to help take away our freedom.
My position is clear, and it always has been clear. I support a woman's right to choose, period.
Caruso says as mayor, he'd protect abortion rights in Los Angeles.
He has tried to say it over and over, pro-choice and pro-choice and pro-choice, and there's still people that are not understanding that he genuinely is. So it's frustrating.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about your dad as all these things are being said about him?
They could think he might be cold because he's this successful businessman, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. He's actually probably the warmest human being I know.
Caruso says in the wake of a racist conversation being leaked between LA City Council members, listening to communities like this one is essential.
There needs to be a hope that the great American dream is here in Los Angeles. And so my fear is that we get stuck. And that's where the mayor really becomes important, to constantly remind people we are moving forward and we've got your back and we're here to serve you.
As mayor, he hopes to inspire others to serve however they can.
If everybody just does a little bit, whatever that may be, to help somebody that needs some help, the city changes so dramatically so quickly.
Up next, we talk with Karen Bass, and for the first time on camera, her kids, about their family's tragedies, triumphs, and how they convinced her to run in the first place. Welcome back to this special edition of The Issue Is, as we examine the character of the candidates for LA mayor. In our last segment, we spoke to Rick Caruso and his family. Now, it's Karen Bass's turn.
Wow.
We're with Karen Bass and her modern family for a delicious brunch.
And then some fresh cut fruit.
Prepared by her son-in-law. We're eating inside the Community Coalition, a South LA-based nonprofit Bass helped to form 32 years ago while a young mom.
Who is Karen Bass, the mom?
A very involved mom.
In the 80s, Bass gave birth to Amelia, with then-husband Jesus Lechuga.
We were married for a while, and when we divorced, we believed strongly in keeping the children together. So he had 3 children who have been a part of my life since the day they were born.
Those children include Yvette and Cynthia, who gave us their first TV interview of the campaign.
What does Karen Bass mean to you?
I mean, she means everything to me. She's my mom. One of them, but she's my mentor. She's my confidant. I'm getting a little emotional.
She's been there when it's been the hardest, you know? When we want to break down, she's there. So, oh my God, I don't know why I'm crying so much.
When Yvette was diagnosed with leukemia as a child, Bass tapped into her experience as a nurse practitioner.
I managed her care for 2.5 years. She was with me. As a matter of fact, she was here at Community Coalition. I had a special couch in my office, and I would go with her for her chemo, and then afterwards she would come back here and sleep.
She was there when I got diagnosed. She was there with all my appointments. She was just with me every step of the way.
Thankfully, Yvette beat that cancer. But years later, the family was devastated by tragedy when Amelia, then 23, and her husband Michael were both killed in a car crash on the 405.
I remember that day, you know, like it was yesterday, and I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like a personal earthquake. And people will tell you in time it gets better, and it's just not true. A traumatic loss like that never goes away.
I mean, we're still processing it to this day, so that's a tough question. I don't think it's something we'll ever get over.
And it took me years to realize like how devastated I was about it. I mean, I still am.
They say Amelia was becoming more politically active right before her death.
The last thing in the world she wanted to do was to be an activist. But in the last couple of years in college, that's absolutely the direction she was going.
Her sisters say Amelia helped them find their voice.
Whenever she saw any injustice.
Yeah, she would point it out right away
Yeah.
and let us know
We think about her all the time. We talk about her all the time. I named my son after my brother-in-law.
Michael.
Michael and his cousin Henry have both brought Bass extraordinary joy as her grandsons.
What is Karen Bass, the grandmother, like?
Now, Karen Bass, the grandmother, spoils her boys.
What does Grandma mean to you?
She means a lot to me.
She's nice and also takes care of us.
My boys, my grandsons.
After attending Grandma's events, they're beginning to love politics. Bass says she first developed that love watching the news on TV every night with her dad.
My father, shaped my worldview just in terms of interpreting the news, and my mother raised me with the spirit of being kind. In other words, she used to say there is just no reason not to be nice. And that is something that has been instilled in me and my 3 brothers. So I was the only girl, 3 brothers, and so that certainly prepared me for the mailed world of politics.
Before she ever entered politics, Bass was in medicine as a nurse practitioner, working in the emergency room at County USC Medical Center.
A lot of my patients were homeless or suffering, as a crime victim. So a lot of the social issues that led to people being in the emergency room, I just had a burning desire to address why they were in the emergency room to begin with.
In 1992, she formed the Community Coalition to help the community overcome its substance abuse issues.
We had crack cocaine, we had the Crips, we had the Bloods. In 1 year, we had 1,000 homicides. So what I did, which some people thought was crazy at the time, I went to the epicenter of the violence and of the problems to say we have got to get together, because the only thing elected officials were proposing were laws to lock people up. And to me, addiction was a health problem, and gang violence was a social and an economic issue. Obviously, it was a crime problem too, but the only solution they had was to incarcerate people.
Thank you.
In 2018, we were on hand as Bass welcomed civil rights icon John Lewis to Cocoa.
We got it going on at the Freedom School.
He met with the young people who are mentored here. That's been happening here since the start.
I felt if we could recruit high school students and get them involved in political activism, then they would have a better outlet for their desire to be rebellious and would not join gangs.
That's you right there?
That's me right there. I was a senior in high school.
Hector Sanchez first met Bass in high school. 32 years later, he's the deputy political director for Community Coalition.
What Karen was able to do was actually engage us about the issues that are impacting our community.
Bass's activism at Community Coalition led to voters asking her to run for the state assembly. She'd become California's first female assembly speaker, then be elected to Congress, where she was almost selected as Joe Biden's vice president. Her life was pretty comfortable in Washington when a vet first pitched an idea to her before anybody else did.
So a vet came to you, right?
Yes.
And said, you should run for mayor.
Yes.
And what did you say to her?
I said, are you crazy?
We went through all of her talking points and told her, each thing where we felt like she can really make a difference and help solve, especially homelessness.
I heard the call from all of you and from within my heart. Los Angeles, you have called me home and I'm ready to serve.
Bass says when she officially entered that race, she reflected on her activism here all those years ago.
I have a responsibility for those who are less fortunate. And it is how I've devoted my life, and it's how I will continue to devote my life. And the reason why, again, I decided to run is because we now have all of these people sleeping on the street.
Bass sees a lot of similarities between now and when Community Coalition first started.
I feel we're at another inflection point in our city where we have another crisis. And I'm so worried that policymakers are getting ready to repeat the same mistakes, which is a punitive response to an overwhelming social, economic, and health problem.
After the recent leaked recording showing members of the LA City Council making racist comments while trying to draw district lines, Bass is leaning into her decades of work bringing together the black and brown communities.
The problem is inequity. So dividing the city up like a piece of pie in 15 slices does not address the disproportionate problems in inner city areas with basic city services, with unemployment, with homelessness, with violence. So we have to address those issues, and I'm looking forward to bringing civic leaders together to come up with a specific action plan, which will be a series of policy proposals that will help move us forward. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you.
Her family says they'll be by her side the entire journey.
I love her to death, and I think the city will too.
When we come back, voting is underway right now. How to ensure your voice is heard. You're watching The Issue Is. Next week on The Issue Is, California Attorney General Rob Bonta will join us in studio for the first time to discuss his campaign to continue leading California's Justice Department. Last week, his Republican opponent, Nathan Hochman, was here. Voting for all races is well underway. If you're a registered voter, you should have already received your mail-in ballot at home by now. If you haven't yet, or you're not registered, you can get more information on all of that at registertovote.ca.gov. The final day to vote is November 8th. You can mail your ballot in up until November 8th, which is why for the closest races, we may not know the winner until weeks later. So it is possible if the House comes down to California's districts, the entire nation could be watching California count votes for close to a month. We'll know the winner of the World Series well before that. And I don't know about you, but I am rooting for the one California team that is left. So we go to break with a shout out to the San Diego Padres and our viewers on Fox 5 San Diego. We'll be right back, and go Padres. That's all for this week. We end with the Above Los Angeles Instagram account taking us above Westwood. See you next week.